Good day, good evening, good night, good morning, or grand rising. Uh, Greetings to you all. Islam to you, my Moorish brothers and sisters, to all those who are looking. This is Dr. Matthews-Bey on the Dr. Matthews-Bey Show. It's a pleasure for me to come to you live once again from the Southwestern Mexium, South American continent, out of the corporation of the Republic of Guyana. And I want to discuss with you this evening the corporate entities and their role in the political lives of such. But before I get into that comprehension tonight, I want to let you know that to those who have been looking at it at a pretty long time and have been following the page, the Matthews-Bey page, which I am now, how should I put it? I'm now broadcasting from, because my Dr. Matthews-Bey Show page on Facebook has been taken down. That means someone else controls it. That means Facebook again. But this time, they cannot control the direct page where the show comes from, which I'm broadcasting to you. So it's a work in progress. By the way, on the information pertaining to the barrel so far, that I am still waiting I'm still waiting the release of this barrel. I've posted on Facebook, and I've been saying constantly over and over again. Now, I want to say clearly what happened. 3 Mondays ago, I was being informed from Williams Shippings over here, which is, I'm making it quite known, which is TK Williams International Shipping Corporation. They got so many registration, I don't know which is which. At first I said Williams Caribbean Shipping and Delivery, but when I got the receipt, it says TK Williams International Shipping Corporation. This has been found in 275 Howard Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. Now, the person there who I have trying to get onto is Keisha. And Keisha, I don't know her last name. I don't know if it's Williams or not, but it's a shippings that, my people would have used to send the goods over here. And she's still holding on to the item. She hasn't called the local office over here to local office over here to release my item. So I'm keeping you informed of what is going on. Keisha would have worked with Laparkan, who is jointly owned by the de facto vice president, Mr. Jack Dio, who has that corporation with other shipping services who use their boat to ship the items over here. And as long as people who are blacklisted by me, long as people who are blacklisted like me from this de facto administration he would get a little hard time getting my stuff here. And Keisha would have informed them of such. So I'm saying to you all, to those who ship with Williams Shipping, they are being paid to, how should I put it over, according to my investigation, to inform upon which area receives more barrels, whose individuals receives more barrels, or items coming from overseas that are being very well supported, or organizations. That's her position, to inform the de facto regime of such activities. So we're still not safe. But for my comprehension is that I will continue to press Miss Keisha, the owner of TK Williams International Shippings, on Howard Avenue. I presume that's in direct information. I'm looking at the receipt, but it's so blurry. It starts with an H and ends with a D, W, yes. On Howard Avenue, and that's in Brooklyn, New York. Was it 11233? I think that's it. So Miss Keisha, trying to make an example out of me. Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to make an example out of her until when I get my stuff. It doesn't matter if it's a year from now, 2 years from now. I'm going to make sure that this information are continuously or constantly be made available, so the Guyanese public in the diaspora would get to know the kind of person that they're dealing with and business. Well, I don't have to deal with her anymore and the Williams Shipping, but I'm making it clear that I haven't received my stuff. It's been a month now, because this is the 4th week I'm in, and it's terrible and horrible of what she is doing. I figured out when she's ready to hand over the barrel to me, all the stuff and items in that particular container will be either expired or like it's rainy season, I believe, what will happen next, But I must keep you informed. By the way, let's get started. Now, as an Aboriginal and as an Indigenous person, or more, I'm telling you people now that we live in a political environment. Our lives are pertaining to politics. It's pertaining to commerce, because that's what politics leads to, commerce. I had a few discussions with a couple of persons from the University of the Corporation of Guyana, and I let them know that their edification process is based upon a commerce activity. Their lives would have led to that. There is no person that will be guaranteed that their lives are going to be different based upon what they have learned throughout their lives. There's no freedom. As a matter of fact, freedom doesn't even exist. The word freedom is a figmentation of one's imagination. We kind of live that word because it was figmented upon us. That means we live that indoctrinated period of freedom. So it is not directly what we think it is. To be independent, more or less, is the better word. To have the ability to choose to craft your destiny is the better word, because you were in charge of that. The minute you release that information to others to be charged of, it will be difficult for you to live that life that you're expected to, because they are charged of managing you. And that's the reason why they're calling for elections, because they want you to give them that permission to manage you all over again. Every 5 years, every electoral process. And the reason why I'm teaching this to my people, my melanated people, it is because you got to comprehend that living in a political system is that you are the refined product. You are what they own. You are their intellectual property. That's why they call you black, colored, Negro, Indian. That's why they call, because you are their intellectual property. You belong to them. You check this planet that you live on, you're the majority in that particular aspect. So I want you to know this, right? It's a difficult situation. It is a difficult situation where it is harder for you to comprehend what I'm saying because of your level of indoctrination. And to crung it off. To crung it off, the church is responsible for this high level of indoctrination. The church is responsible for that. And to help you to know where you are is to gradually bring you out of that position, because the church wouldn't bring you out of that position. The church would continue to teach and preach the gospel of indoctrination. And then they will lead you to talk to your political representatives, because they will constantly, if you realize during the electoral process, the church will advise you and tell you they don't complain which party you join, but make sure when you join that party, you become an honest person. There's no honesty in politics. There's no honesty in commerce. As a matter of fact, your lives are being controlled by dishonesty. That is the fact. Whether we see it in a position where it is not conducive for us, but some of us, as a matter of fact, some of us knows that we've been led by dishonesty. But we live the life of pretense because we want to gain, but you cannot gain. It doesn't matter. Sometimes we know the truth, but we don't want to say the truth because we want to get a house on a piece of land. But then at the end of the day, we don't own it. Whether we leave it for our children, we don't own it, because your children's, and everybody has to go through a process of civilized, as they call it, a military occupation to the mind and indoctrination. And when we go through that process and we teach our children that process, our children make sure that their children also be a part of that process. None of us goes through our ancestral leadership. It was the ownership to who we are, what we are, and where we are. The pursuit of life, liberty, and property, which are inalienable rights. And as long as we cannot comprehend that faction of life, we are in a serious dilemma. I'm telling you that. And politics were designed for you to keep in this position. You are designed to be kept in this disposition at all times, because that is who you are. You're a product of the system, which is a process of enslavement. You're a product of the system by way of education, by way of the food that you eat, by way of the medication, by way of politics, by way of everything. Your entire life, as you know it, on this planet depends upon your slave masters because you've been brought up into the system. And those who are not acquainted to the system have been brought up in the system, they call them savages or indigenous, uncivilized, third world, shithole countries. All these things comes out of their mouths because they know you're being led by an illusion. And they laugh at you because they cannot comprehend that you can be led so easily into that illusionistic imperiality of others. They call themselves imperial beings because they know personally that you are unable to see the truth and to do the things that you want to do in life. They know that you're unable to know the truth because they control the truth. Why you think they call places that control the truth museums, libraries? Because they know in order for you to know the truth, you have to travel to where they are. Like, for instance, let me show you. The treaty that started from 1778 on to 1845 lies in the U.S. Congress. And for you to know about those treaties that were signed by the Moors, that was created by the Moors to be signed from these different corporations for one particular purpose, which is commerce, lies within the U.S. Library of Congress. And for you to know that, you have to go pay for it. And you have to go through a process of patience for that truth. And when you get the truth now, then you'll be amazed because you've been living a lie. They don't want you to know that truth. A lot of people doesn't know that when the Treaty of Commerce that was signed by these corporations, especially on the South, North, and Central America, lies in the U.S. Congress, lies in the U.S. Library of Congress. They don't want you to know such an event took place. They don't want you to know when the treaty was signed, it's for all these different corporations like Brazil, Suriname, Venezuela, Chile, Argentina, all these countries. That is why in those days they call it a United States of America and not the United States. And that's why I said on my show there are two different United States. The United States are where US is. A United States was a combination of South, Central, and North America. That's why those treaties still stand and they're valid. And under that treaty, they form themselves as the Organization of American States. Hear the word OAS, Organization of American States. How do you think that was formed? It was based upon the treaties that were signed. South, Central, and North America comprises the Organization of American States, which the Caribbean community falls under too. This creation of that particular thing was formed from the treaties that were signed. But they particularly doesn't want you to know that. The Organization of American States is a very powerful organization. It was formed upon that treaty and it was declared upon that treaty, but your leaders are not going to tell you that. They would never tell you that. How do you think they got to overthrow your elected slave master? How do you think they got to replace him is based upon politics, based upon democracy. For once you signed on to the democratic rulership of all these states, you signed on to this kind of activity. Your subjects might vote for you to become their slave master, but if those who control the house slaves does not like that particular slave master, they're going to replace him. That's what happens. He was replaced. That is democracy. That is democracy. Don't be ashamed of democracy. You have to, at the end of the day, realize the truth. You have to realize the truth. You just can't sit down and make believe that this is not happening. People, oh, come on. You cannot. It's impossible for you to just sit down and make believe that this is not real when it's right in front of you. You have to be part of that awakening to know the truth. You can't just make believe that the truth doesn't exist. It exists. You need to awaken yourselves, people. You need to awaken yourselves from this deep sleep that you're in. Because you're going to be living in a fantasy world over and over and over again. And it will not profit you. I'm serious. Let's get real. It is not good for you. Seriously. Because here what will happen. They call it year go, year come, it's the same thing. And when you're being bombarded with the same lies over and over, it's hard and impossible for you to recognize it. Like, let me use the word emancipate. Let's use that word. Emancipate. Right? And it's a word that I've been teaching people that they must stop using it. But let's use the word emancipate. To emancipate means to transfer, and I'm talking about the etymology of the word. Etymology means the meaning, the reason why the word was created for that particular purpose. That's what etymology means. Right? Now, when we get down into the comprehension, to emancipate means to transfer my property, which is my slaves, to another ownership. It means to transfer. So when we celebrate emancipation, Yes. As I was, before I was rudely interrupted there, yes, as I was discussing, to emancipate. To emancipate means to 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 transfer your property to another. It's like, for instance, let me make a better example, like a will. Before the deathbed of your father or your mother, they created a will. And in that will is to emancipate, to transfer their property. Property of what they owned to you, their children. That is the process of emancipation. But the difference is that in the commercial existence, when the slave masters would have transferred their slaves to the system, the government now owes them what you call reparations. And reparations now would have meant that they would have had to pay them a year, 2 years, 10 years worth of economic, or 2 years worth of interest that they would have gained, or capital. They would have to, reparations mean that they would have had to give them back their capital in which they spent to purchase their slaves, and the interest in which they would have gained from the slave over a 10-year period or 20-year period or what have you. That's the reparations. Now they created a comprehension, which is an understanding, but it's a comprehension, where that belongs to us. But reparation does not belong to us. Reparation belongs to the slave masters. This is why when your de facto president or your CEO, Mr. Ali, went into Mexico to sit down with the United Nations Convention on indigenous persons and enslaved persons of African origins, he talked about reparations. Indeed, he was correct. They owed the Guyanese government reparations for those who were enslaved. Yes, not you, the slaves. They owed the government who would have invested in you. Because remember now, they handed them over to you again. The British Guyana handed them over to an independent nation of 1966. And the independent nation handed them over to the Organization of American States and to the United Nations Convention of Democratic Countries. So the United Nations of Democratic Countries owes the now cooperative countries, which like Guyana, a state of reparation. But it is based upon if British colonial or British Empire wants to pay the Guyanese government reparations for their investment of 50 years of the subjects that they would have now have, if you comprehend what I'm saying. These are the facts. It's sad to say this, but it is the fact. You can't run away from it. So, emancipation and reparation belongs to the slave masters. Not you, the enslaved persons. You're still a slave. You're still their property. So the students in the university, they're shocked of what I'm saying. But it is the fact. They said, but how can I be a property? I said, aren't you a Guyanese? They said, yes. He said, well, then you're their property. You belong to where you belong to. The Corporation of Guyana. Simple. One of them was saying, so how can I free myself from this situation? I said, well, do not renew your ID card, do not renew your passport, do not renew your driver's license. So well, then you cannot be a subject of the system because you're not registered anymore. You cannot be seen as a Guyanese. But they're saying if I cannot be seen as a Guyanese, then I can't stay here. I said, yes, this is your rights. I said, Guyana is a foreign entity. Guyana wasn't born on the continent of the United of America. It wasn't birth. There was no birth of Guyana. Yeah, sorry, there was a birth of the corporation, but they weren't born here. The British brought Guyana here from where they came from. Before it was Guyana, it was Guyana. Two different pronunciation. But they came and met it. They came here. They didn't discover Guyana. They didn't discover the South American continent. They have already met people here who have already discovered it. And they handed it over to a corporate system of house slaves, which is the political system. And the political system has been running elections for 50 years, trying to see which house slave can manage and better the slaves on the plantation, better than who. Those are the facts. And in order for you to be identified, they call you black, they call you Afro, they call you Negroid, they call you Indian. And to those who claim themselves to be natives, they call them Amerindians. And if you don't think I'm lying, check the Constitution, Amerindian Act of 2006. You are owned by the system. Those who call themselves black, Afro, and Indian, you are owned by the system. You may have some fiat currency more than some, but you tell yourself that you're elevated in life, but you're still owned. But what is disgusting is when you try to take the lives of those you are asked to manage properly. That's what I call genocide. So the reason why I'm saying this now is because I want for us as a people to rise up. Now is that time. Now is that time. It's important enough to recognize who you are. The minute you keep calling yourself black people, you are going to be in poverty because that's where you are. That's where they put you when you identify yourself as a black man. Impoverished, that's what it means. To be enslaved. To be the field nigger. That's what the word black means. So when you are a field slave, you have no authority even over yourself. So now you have your Indian brothers and sisters running around the place calling themselves highfalutin coolie. When they look at the etymology of the word Indian, it means indigo. Indigo means black. That's not the etymology, it is the meaning. The etymology of the word indigo, Indian means indigo. Then when we check the meaning of indigo, it means to be black. So then there are two types of slaves. You have the field nigger, then you have the house nigger. And you're running around telling yourself maybe you're semi-Caucasian. When it doesn't matter where you go, you're still owned. That's the bottom line. So terrible, huh? You're still owned. Somebody still owns you. Can't run away from the fact. That's the fact. So when you jump up and you practice your racist ideologies, what you're doing, you're fulfilling that of the slave master. So they don't have to worry to practice racist bigotry ideologies on you. All they have to do is unleash the house nigger. And boops, both of y'all apart. Divide, rule, and conquer. It's the same thing they're doing. And like what you used to do years ago when your foreparents were enslaved, well, there ain't got nothing I could do about it, you know, massa. When massa wants to rape your daughters, can't do nothing about it. Most you can say, well, this massa privilege because massa owns us. Fast forward to today. They create such an environment that it's hard for you, those who call yourself Afro-Guyanese or Black Guyanese, to make a life into this system. They make sure that you're being underpaid. They make sure that you're being malnourished. They make sure you have the worst type of education into this education system of the Corporation of Guyana. So you're always at the bottom scale of the ladder. So what happens after then? The present de facto corporation, the present de facto CEO, which is Mr. Ali, will now come out and boost the entertainment section. Look at it. And let me show you exactly what he did. He gave public servants, which predominantly Afro-Guyanese, 8% across the board. But he had a meeting where he doubled the payouts to the artists of the entertainment system of what you call, what was it they had? Carnival, cricket carnival, double the price. So those who had $10, $15 million now have started $30 million each per person. That's what they were paid. Don't get tired up. That's what they were paid. To do what? To promote entertainment. When they promote entertainment now, what entertainment promotes and increases? It increases prostitution. Here we go, back again. Your daughters are now being earmarked and advanced for future prostitutive activities. They now have to now sell themselves in order to eat some of the crumbs that is falling off the table. It is the same thing when they were enslaved. Back again. Now the young men have to sell crack and cocaine because that's part of the entertainment system. Back then it was the mandingos. When the master finished with the women now, when the women give birth, now the mandingos has to run around the same place and impregnate those sisters to increase the population of slaves. Then after that, I'm talking about then past and now present. Now you still have the drugs and you have the guns. And when you finish with the drugs and the guns and the prostitution, now you have the prison system to put them in, because you cannot allow them to run around free all the time. They're going to feel that they can affect anybody with their lawlessness that you encourage, that you promoted, that you give. Because at the end of the day, these brothers and sisters does not have the resources to bring these things into the villages. How you think they come in? How you think the guns enter the villages? How you think the drugs and the cocaine? They don't make them. It is the system who brings it in by what you call the drug lords. And the drug lords now fight for competition among themselves. And in the competition among themselves, they create a mass genocide like what happened in 2000 and 2010 in the Corporation of Guyana. You see how everything fits? They fall into place. That is what's going to happen again. But this time, it's happening on a scale which is not even being controlled by them. It is now being controlled by the master plan executioner, which is now the British and the US. See what the British said? British come out the other day and said, well, if you all want local government election, you have to proceed with the same list. Since when? Do they have authority to speak over you as an ambassador? Well, they do, because they are your slave masters. So they can tell you who they want to stay as your house slave, which they can control. You see how it is divided? Just how the US can turn up and say, well, we can agree, we follow our British colleague in the British embassy to encourage Guyanese to accept the same electoral list and go to the polls. But here was the disgusting part of it. If those who you call leaders, those who are politicians that you call leaders, have to accept what they're saying, they don't have a choice. Because the politic means more blood-sucking ticks has to follow the democratic norms of the hierarchies. They have to follow the democratic norms. They don't have a choice. They never have a choice. That's the fact. It's sad to say that, but that's the fact. They do not have a choice. So whether we want to hold our elected representatives accountable, I'm saying to you, this is what they represent. In order for them to don't represent the slave masters, they have to be what you call central execs. That means they nationalize everything. That is why they hated Forbes Burnham, because he took Guyana out of that slave master's temperament. And he started nationalizing everything. Move everything out of the control of your ex and present slave masters. Sorry, not ex, present slave masters. Because they're still your slave master anyhow. That's the only way you will benefit. That's the only way you will benefit. Other than that, woe be unto you. Woe be unto you other than that. Because anything else can't work. The most horrible thing I would perceive that we can or cannot do is to continue to accept slavery. We need to tell ourselves as a people that To be enslaved is not something. Just hold a minute for me, please. Gotta put on this headset. Just a minute. Just a minute. Okay, good. I'm back. Okay. Yes, I think people are getting to hear me. Slavery is something that I don't think we can continue to carry on with. It's not a good thing. It doesn't, I don't have any better way to put it. And if you're asking me, because I know a lot of people do ask me, if I do exactly what I teach and preach, and I said yes. Well, the university students now knows that, but a lot of Guyanese doesn't know that. A lot of Guyanese doesn't know that I'm not Guyanese anymore. A lot of Guyanese doesn't know that I'm Aboriginal and Indigenous. I'm not according to the Constitution of Guyana, and the laws does not constitute upon my life. I'm not subject to acts, codes, conduct, and statutes. I'm not a subject to that. And these are things we need to comprehend. In order for you to come out of this oppressive situation that you're in, is to venture out from it. And I can't teach and preach what I don't live. I have to live it before I teach it and preach it. I can't tell you don't do what I do, but do what I say you must do. That's impossible. That's being a hypocrite. I cannot be that hypocrite. I cannot. It's impossible for me to be that hypocrite. It's not, to me, it's not how should I put it over? It's not a best thing to do. It's not something that I should take pride in doing. You know? It's not that good. I cannot tell you to remain in slavery when I'm not. Or I cannot tell you to come out of slavery when I'm in slavery. That is why I stepped away from being a corporate state citizen, because I don't like it. You know what is it that when the slave, the house slaves doesn't like you, and they send the police. Do you know where the conduct and the action of police derive from? It derives from slave catchers. That's what it derived from, slave catchers, people who hunted down slaves who escaped. That's what it means to police your own product. That's what it is. And they came with the same mentality all over the world. And they come and they pick you up and they take you to the police station and they ask you, and then they said, if you want to remain silent, and yes, you remain silent, and they say, put you before a court. They still put you before a court. And that court now, because you refuse to talk and you remain silent, now sentences you. Because you're what? You're an escaped slave and you don't know that. You're a nuisance to society. What is society? A group of slaves that calls themselves civilized, military ruled people. That's what civilized means. So when you don't want to be civilized, they call you anti-corrupt, because you refuse to be civilized. They say that you're anti-corrupt, causing distort among contracted slaves who prefer to remain as slaves and doesn't want to come out of the slave world. So they call you anti-corrupt, anti-movement, and anti-this and anti-that, anti-Semitic. As again I say, causing distort among a people who prefer to remain citizens enslaved by a corporate system. You understand? That is what you're doing. And they will tell you over and over again, oh, this man is a racist. You cannot be racist. No one can. The only people who can be racist is those who control you, who try to enslave you all the time. And what is racism? Racism is an act of division. That's racism. That's the lives you live. That's the lives you live. Let me show you an example. Let us say if the Corporation of the Republic of Guyana decides to link with Venezuela and be an ally of Venezuela and manage their resources for the upliftment of their people, then you hear Guyana is a dictatorship. It's an anti-colonialism, anti-democratic, anti-civilization. Then you will hear those things. Brothers and sisters, all, I constantly try to talk to you to help you to comprehend exactly what is going on in these lands of America that belongs to your foreparents and your ancestors, Aboriginal, indigenous people, melanated people. Every other ethnic group came to these lands and meet us. We shall not no more sit down and encourage them to enslave us even more. We have to rise up, edify ourselves, know who we are and where we are, and practice our lineage in order to keep informing our children and helping our brothers and sisters realize the truth. My name is Dr. Matthews-Bey. I'm privileged to come to you constantly on this The Dr. Matthews-Bey Show, and will always do this to not only to edify, but to constantly inform you. Today's show comes to you with the kind compliments of Events Management Services, Greenleaf Distributors, Black Love. For any other orders that you would like to place, please call the number on your screen, 611-6575, preferably WhatsApp call. I want to say thank you. Stay safe, be careful, sanitize yourself, wear a mask. Don't forget the little ones when you take them into public places. This is Dr. Matthews saying once again, goodbye and Cheerios for now.